James and the others found a mysterious phone in the woods. Here's what happened. They were just hiking through the woods when Jill found a phone lying in the dirt. It was cracked, old, but the screen was still on. She picked it up and there was only one contact. It said, "You." Bob thought it was some kind of prank until the phone buzzed. Jill looked at the screen and froze, then whispered, "It just texted me." Bob leaned in to read it, and the message said, "Don't move. I see all three of you." Then the phone started ringing, and on the screen, in big red letters, it said, "Look behind you."
So there was this boy named Kevin, who thought he was the king of the school. He bullied everyone, even the cafeteria lady. One day, Kevin was walking in the hallway, being his usual loud self, when suddenly he jumped and screamed. Everyone turned around, thinking something serious happened. Turns out, he was scared of his own shadow. He thought it was some giant monster sneaking up on him. From that day on, no one took him seriously. The boy who made everyone scared got scared by nothing.
Okay, so there was this kid, and he had no idea what robbery was. In fact, when he heard adults talk about robbery or anything related to robbery, this kid's thought about robbery is so different to what it actually means. One day, when he heard his dad and his dad's friend talking about a robbery incident, which was basically two men robbing the shop, he asked his dad, "Daddy, did those men really put their hands on the shop and gave it to Rub?" Bob, Jane, and Jill lived normal lives until one night they each received a mysterious letter that reads, "The time is shorter than you think. You have one chance. Choose wisely before the door closes." Each of them reacts differently. Bob ignores it, thinking it's a prank. Jane starts to question everything she thought was true. Jill begins seeking answers and finds a light shining from her Bible that she finds in her attic. As strange events begin happening, dreams, signs, and even disappearances, the three are faced with one finite choice. Once upon a time, there was a 7-year-old named James who wasn't very good at math, and at a point, he was starting to be underestimated by his teacher because he was always failing math tests. Normally, this teacher makes a rule at math tests saying, "Cover your papers to prevent cheating," but he made an exception for James because the teacher thought that he will fail anyway. On a very important math exam, which was made by the government, their teacher was unfortunately their invigilator, but again made the cover your exam paper rule, and again made the same exception for James. But this time, something was different. The whole class found the math exam hard, and James came prepared. He studied, he prayed, and was encouraged by his parents. The days while the teacher was mocking him. James took it, and this time, for some reason, everyone copied from James. So the next day, while the teacher was marking, he thought that something was strange. Everyone passed the math exam 100% with name plus plus plus, and James, who would normally fail, didn't fail. He noticed that everyone wrote the same way that James wrote. The teacher didn't punish anyone, but congratulated James and apologized to James in front of the class for all of everything he treated James for. If you found that story interesting, click the subscribe button in order to be notified and see more stories from Raiden's Sammy. This 5-year-old boy became president of this big country. However, some people didn't think he would become president or know how he became president. One day, in an interview, the interviewer asked the 5-year-old president, "How did you win elections?" The 5-year-old responded saying, "Easy. I gave each contestant fried rice with chicken and ice cream every day for 6 months so they could step aside for me." Okay, so imagine a baby boy whose first word was Lamborghini, and that's all he says and likes when he grows into a toddler. He then gets his own Lamborghini and starts driving it. The police doesn't stop him. In fact, the police beat him up one day and says, "What's up, Majid?" And the toddler says, "Hey, my bro, her thanks." And they're good friends, and the toddler drives off, and everyone who sees him admires him. One day, this big bro got jealous of him and says, "Little kid, stand up and skedaddle your big butt out of that Lamborghini." But as soon as he takes a closer look at the Lamborghini, he admires it instantly and didn't dare to touch him, so he became friends with the toddler. In fact, he became his bodyguard, and they called the Lamborghini Super Lamborghini, and they lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, this happened in an elementary school. This bully tried to take a kid's lunch. Spaghetti, right? Normal stuff. But the kid had it in this Naruto lunchbox, and you already know, that means trouble. The bully goes, "Give me your food, nerd," all loud and confident. And the kid, calm as ever, picks up a meatball with chopsticks, looks at the bully, and just goes, "Are you sure?" Before anyone could say anything, the meatball somehow hits the bully right in the forehead. I don't know if it bounced, flew, or teleported. All I know is the dude backed off and never touched him again. Now we all call that kid Ninja Lunchbox. Total legend. Okay, so there was this kid, and he had no idea what robbery was. In fact, when he heard adults talk about robbery or anything related to robbery, this kid's thought about robbery is so different to what it actually means. One day, when he heard his dad and his dad's friend talking about a robbery incident, which was basically two men robbing the shop, he asked his dad, "Daddy, did those men really put their hands on the shop and gave it a rub?" Matty B's YouTube journey started in 2010 when he was just 7 years old. It all started when his big cousin Mr. Marshall moved in with Matty B's family, and Mr. Marshall himself was a rapper, so he set up his studio in their house. One day, Matty B walked up to Mr. Marshall and asked, "Can you put me on YouTube, please?" So Matty B performed a song for him. It wasn't perfect though, but Mr. Marshall worked with it. So Mr. Marshall created a YouTube channel with Matthew's nickname, Matty B, and raps because he wanted to be a rapper. A few years later, Matty B's channel hit 1 billion views, and he started making his own originals. As of now, Matty B Raps has 15.4 million subscribers and over 4 billion views.